Welcome to Shadow Fable. Don't forget to subscribe. I still remember the day I received the letter. A brittle envelope, its edges stained with time and salt, inviting me to a destiny I hadn't chosen yet could no longer escape. The letter informed me of an inheritance. A remote seaside manor left to me by a relative whose name, long obscured by family silences, I barely recalled. Mourning my own losses and desperate to escape memories that clung like shadows, I traveled north, to the windswept cliffs where the manor sat precariously against the relentless ocean. The manor was nothing like I had imagined. Set against a backdrop of tumultuous gray skies and thunderous waves crashing below, it exuded a quiet dignity marred by neglect. Even before stepping through its creaking iron gate, an inexplicable tug gripped my heart, a longing for an unknown past, as if the manor itself whispered secrets from its ancient bones. I could smell the salty tang of sea spray mingling with the must of disuse. Each breath in the open air a reminder that time here moved differently. Inside, the mansion's halls were cloaked in a melancholic silence. Faded portraits lined the walls like mournful sentinels watching over long-lost memories. I wandered through these corridors, my footsteps echoing on the flagstones, until I discovered a grand music room. Here, dust motes danced in streaks of sunlight, and an antique piano sat in a corner with a delicate sheet of music lying atop its keys. Its title, Nocturne for the Forgotten, was scrawled in elegant, archaic handwriting, the same handwriting that had graced every letter from my mysterious benefactor. The sight of that sheet music stirred something deep within me, a resonance like an echo of something I had once known, though I couldn't name it. The first night was restless. I tried to sleep, but insomnia commandeered my thoughts, and the manor's silence was broken only by the whispered hum of the wind and the ceaseless low moan of the sea. As midnight approached, an unsettling melody seemed to waft through the corridors, a ghostly aria that defied the silence. It was almost imperceptible, as if a spectral hand were coaxing the notes from the piano itself. I rose from my bed, drawn inexorably toward the music room. Standing before the piano, I hesitated, the echo of that mysterious tune dancing in my ears. I sat at the bench as if compelled by an unseen force. Tentatively, I opened the sheet music. Despite my years of training, I recognized nothing of its notation. Yet, as my fingers grazed the cold keys, a strange compulsion took over. It wasn't a practiced performance, but rather a desperate attempt to match the elusive tune that filled the house. With each note, my body seemed to tremble, whether from cold or dread I could not tell. The melody grew bolder, more demanding. My surroundings began to shift subtly. The edges of my vision darkened, and the room took on a dreamlike quality. It was as if the piano had become a portal to another realm, one where the boundaries between memory and nightmare blurred. I could feel an unseen audience, a silent presence whose breath hovered at the back of my neck. Their expectant silence was overwhelming, and I was suddenly aware of every creak, every rustle in the manor that might signal another spirit approaching. Days turned into a strange continuum of disquiet and solitary obsession. I found that I could no longer resist the compulsion to play the forbidden piece every night, even though it terrified me. The act of playing became both a ritual and a torment, a synthesis of beauty and horror where each note echoed the depths of my own grief and guilt. I began to document my thoughts in a journal, if only to assert some control over the steadily unraveling tapestry of my mind. I recorded the haunting interplay between the notes and my own emotions, noting every subtle change, the inexplicable chill that raced along my spine, the fleeting sensation of fingers grazing my skin from the darkness beyond. On one fog-laden evening, just as the coastal winds wailed like the lost souls of seafarers, I encountered a visitor. As I played, completely absorbed in the Nocturne, I became aware of another presence in the music room. A figure barely perceptible in the dim light, hidden behind the heavy drapes. I stopped playing abruptly, heart pounding, as the silence that followed seemed to press in from every side. "Who's there?" I called out, voice trembling yet resolute. The only response was a whisper of piano keys struck without human intervention, resonating in the empty air. The sound was not quite right. It was as if someone was intentionally altering the progression of the piece, correcting my hesitations, coaxes me to continue. The next few nights brought further unexplainable incidents. I began to perceive fleeting silhouettes in the mirror reflections, and hear fragmented phrases in an indecipherable tongue. My grip on reality wavered. The boundary between my isolation and the presence I half believed was haunting the manor grew ever thinner. I tried to consult old records, searching through the dusty files left behind in the manor's archive, only to find cryptic references to a long-lost relative who was renowned not only for his musical genius, but also for an enigmatic curse. There were hints that he had struck a secret pact to create a masterpiece so powerful that it could summon the spirits of those forgotten by time to awaken them from their eternal slumber. The curse, I realized with mounting dread, was now entwined with my fate. My nightly performances were more than mere exercises in grief. They were the final cadence of a ritual whose true nature I had barely comprehended. The relentless march of the melody had begun to change me. I found myself waking from fitful sleep with the lingering echo of notes, my dreams invaded by imagery of flickering candlelight and anguished faces that receded into shadows. At times, I could almost see the spectral silhouette that had once hovered in the music room, its features obscured by the half-light, but unmistakably human. A man, perhaps, of great melancholy, whose eyes seemed to plead with me for something lost. I attempted to break the cycle. Desperation led me to confide in a local historian, Mr. Baldwin, an elderly scholar well-versed in the lore of the region. Over tea in a cramped seaside cottage that smelled of salt and old paper, I recounted the uncanny happenings at the manor. Mr. Baldwin's lined face grew grave as he explained that my mysterious relative had been more than a mere eccentric. He was an alchemist of sound, dedicating his life to capturing the souls of those who had been dismissed or forgotten. Music, he whispered, has a way of echoing into realms beyond our understanding, and sometimes it calls out to those who are already here. Despite his earnest warnings, I felt an irresistible pull to continue playing. What if, I reasoned, the music was not a curse but a lament, a plea for recognition from the silenced voices of the past? I began to record my attempts at playing, each session unfolding like a conversation with the invisible presence. I talked to it quietly, apologizing for any offense it might have taken, and begging for mercy in return. In these moments of vulnerable dialogue, I could almost believe that the manor listened. Then, on a night when the storm raged fiercer than ever, I reached a crescendo that felt destined, as if every note was a thread weaving my soul to the spectral figure. The winds tore at the windows, and rain slashed the glass with the ferocity of ancient grief. The music began to distort, warping into a dissonant aria that resonated with deep, thrumming bass notes. I closed my eyes and surrendered to the compulsion, letting the melody drown out the howling storm outside. In that charged moment, the presence made itself undeniably known. I felt a cold hand, or perhaps a gust of wind, brush against my cheek, and I heard a voice, a whisper so laden with sorrow that it seemed to merge with the pounding of my heart. "Complete the song," it murmured. each word a ghostly command. Panic mingled with a strange euphoria as I found that my fingers no longer hesitated. Instead, they raced over the keys as if possessed by the fervor of an ancient spirit. The notes spilled out, more passionate and full-bodied than anything I had ever played. It was as if the distant relative's soul was pleading for closure, desperate to finish the work that had consumed his life, and it now seemed mine. The crescendo of that night was both beautiful and terrible. In those final moments of that nocturne, as the melody reached an unbearable intensity, the very walls of the manor seemed to tremble. I could hear the sounds of footsteps pacing in distant corridors, soft and measured, as if an unseen orchestra were gathering for a final symphony. I felt on the edge of consciousness, my mind unraveling like thread from an aged tapestry. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the music died, leaving only the chaotic symphony of the storm outside and my own ragged breathing. In the hush that followed, the figure materialized before me. His presence was unmistakable. Pale, sorrowful eyes meeting mine with a mixture of relief and despair. He was clad in a worn suit that echoed another era, his expression etched with a burden of regret. "I am the composer you have summoned, the forgotten soul who once poured his agony into these keys," he intoned softly. His voice was a balm and a terror all at once, resonant with an ancient longing. "You have played my requiem, unknowingly binding me to you." The revelation sparked a tumult of emotions within me. All along, my grief had intertwined with his spectral woe. The manner, the music, it was as if my own despair had found a mirror in his, compelling us to share an unholy communion of sorrow and redemption. I stammered, "What must I do?" The night deepened as he replied, "Finish what I started. Complete my nocturne. In doing so, you will free us both from the chains of remembrance, or risk becoming lost in a labyrinth of perpetual mourning." Thus began the final, desperate quest to decode the mysterious, half-forgotten composition. Over the ensuing days, I scoured every inch of the manor for hidden manuscripts and lost memories. The music room yielded secret compartments behind ancient paneling and loose floorboards concealing letters and sketches that hinted at the origins of the cursed melody. I grew increasingly obsessed as each discovery deepened the connection between my soul and the spectral composers. My sleep was a tapestry of dreams filled with the sound of a ghostly orchestra, each note a memory I could almost grasp, yet perpetually slipping away. As I painstakingly pieced together the fragmented score, the spectral presence seemed to guide my hand, urging me to transcribe notes that danced on the edge of madness. My journal filled with frantic scrawls of musical notations and anguished reflections. At times, I was overcome by fleeting moments of clarity amidst the chaos, a glimpse of a joyous past intermingled with unfathomable sorrow. In one particularly vivid vision, I found myself in a sunlit field, playing a gentle melody, the laughter of children echoing in the distance. But as quickly as the vision appeared, it shattered into shards of iridescent horror, leaving me sobbing with the weight of inevitable loss. The final night approached like a dark promise. Rain pounded the manor relentlessly, and the sea roared as if in mourning. I sat before the grand piano one last time, the completed nocturne spread before me in meticulously written ink, a testament to both my pain and his sorrow. My fingers trembled as I began to play the final passage, the notes laden with every tear and every memory of a life marked by grief and regret. The melody soared, carrying with it the spectral echoes of a forgotten past, rising above the clamor of the storm. As I played, the presence of the composer became almost tangible. a warm, ethereal glow that hovered near me, its eyes glistening with a silent plea for release. The room seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the music, every note summoning forth glimpses of lives long past. At the apex of the performance, the manor itself appeared to awaken, the walls pulsating with the heartbeat of memories. I could see faces in the flickering shadows, each one a testament to forgotten souls yearning to be remembered and, finally, to be free. When the final note quivered in the charged silence, an eerie stillness descended upon the manor. The spectral figure slowly faded, his expression a bittersweet mix of gratitude and sorrow. In that moment, I felt the weight of countless lifetimes lift from my heart, a serene emptiness replacing the tumult of grief. I had freed him and, in the process, exorcised a piece of my own tortured past. In the aftermath, the nights at the manor lost their oppressive cadence, and the endless echo of the forbidden melody softened to a gentle whisper, like a lullaby for weary souls. The music room, once a chamber of torment, became a sanctuary of memory, its keys resonating with the bitter-sweet echoes of lives intertwined by fate and sorrow. I understood then that the inheritance was never merely a physical estate, but a passage into a realm where grief and music coalesced into something transcendent. Though the manor remains a repository of secrets and the silence of the past lingers in every room, I now play the piano with a measured tenderness. The Nocturne, once a harbinger of torment, has transformed into a requiem of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest corners of our minds, there is light waiting to be reawakened. And as the sea whispers to the shore and the wind hums through the empty halls, I am no longer the solitary, grieving violinist, but a keeper of forgotten memories, forever bound to the eternal cadence of life. In those quiet hours, when the world outside sleeps, I sometimes think I hear the soft strains of his final aria carried on the breeze, a song of solace for those who dare to remember. And in that echo, I find the strength to continue, knowing that every note I play is a step toward healing, a delicate dance between sorrow and redemption in the endless nocturne for the forgotten.